I call it change implementation coaching, because a lot of people want to make a change in their life and don't know how.
Welcome to the DMF podcast, where you'll find great conversations with interesting people who have been called to serve. We'll meet impactful charities, dive deep into pressing health topics, and learn from servant leaders working to see, be, and spread light. At the end of each episode, we hope you're inspired to realize your own unlimited potential to change the world for the better. Join us as we work to create a region of the healthiest, most purpose-driven people on the planet. Welcome to the DMF Podcast Lead with Light series, hosted by me, Pastor Devlin Brooks, the CEO of Churches United. In the Lead with Light series, we explore the program's curriculum, talking with vibrant leaders who are demonstrating the very principles we're teaching, and introducing you to a variety of opportunities to take advantage of this dynamic leadership program. In this episode, we visited with Marcia Werner, a longtime former Fargo-Moorhead resident, real estate agent, and professional change coach, who came home from a vacation to Hawaii a few years back and said, "I can't do another Minnesota winter. I'm moving." That was 3 moves ago, and Marcia's family, who doesn't speak French, now finds themselves freshly living in France with life all upside down, willingly. This may sound terrifying to those who like order and consistency, but let's find out what drove this move for Marcia and her family. Let's dig in. Well, Marcia, welcome to the Lead with Light podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm very grateful. So, as I mentioned in the opening, you are in France. You're about 7 hours ahead of us. You said it is about dinner time for you. I would be honored if you would tell our audience how it is that we know each other.
Well, we go way, way back.
Hey, let's
to our
let's
hometown.
not date ourselves here.
I didn't say how many years. I just said way back.
Okay.
To our hometown of Fertile, Minnesota, and I feel like I've known you my whole life. I suppose I probably have. So.
Yeah. Your dad was my math teacher.
I assumed he's everybody's teacher.
Right.
So,
True.
Yeah.
True statement. I have to say this, and maybe you've heard this before in your life, but I never got to share this with him, but I'm going to share it with you. So the lasting memory that I have of your dad was, full transparency here, I wasn't the greatest math student.
Okay.
But he recognized that, and there were many a lunch hour where I would go to the classroom and he would work one-on-one with me very patiently. And the other piece of this was, I don't know, this might be groundbreaking for a lot of teachers, but he did his daily events quiz, right?
Yes. Yep.
And just for getting high school students to pay more attention to the news and headlines, he would have this 5-question daily quiz where you could earn bonus points that counted towards your grade. And that quiz in itself probably allowed me to have a passing grade in math.
Yeah, for a lot of people, I think. It was unique.
Well,
thanks for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah, and I thought I share it because I know he did it because of his big heart. and out of recognition for the fact that not everybody was a geometry or trigonometry whiz. And quite frankly,
right.
Those daily events quizzes saved my bacon, not going to lie.
Yeah. That's good. And you probably learned some things about the world.
I did.
Yeah.
So you did not grow up in France, obviously. And
Nope.
and you have connections to the Fargo-Moorhead area. So why don't we start there? Because I know that you still know an awful lot of people in this region, and share with what it is before you made your big Florida move, what you were doing here.
Yeah. So born and raised in Minnesota, really spent my whole life in Minnesota, in the Fargo-Moorhead area. I think we were there for, 15 years or so in that particular area. And so, yeah, I feel like everybody, mostly everybody I know is still in the Fargo-Moorhead area. And most of my family was too, up until recently, moved away. But so, yeah, I'm very familiar with the people in that area, and that's home to me for sure. But in 2018, we were in Hawaii. I always tell the story of this is how it all happened. We were in Hawaii on a beach, and it was the last day being at the beach. And I said, I don't want to go back. And my husband said, yeah, I know, it's great here. I said, no, I just don't want to go back to that life. We had built bought this big, beautiful home and had renovated it, and everything was perfect. And we had this nice little life. And there was a lot of things just missing. And I thought, I don't want to go back to that life. And from there, we made a plan to move to Charleston, South Carolina. And we came back and sold everything and moved a few months later to South Carolina. And this kind of started what you see now. It's kind of started this whole thing. So,
how long did it take you to kind of wrap up the affairs here and then make that move?
I think that was like the end of March, and we moved in August of that same year. So just a few months. And we had never been to Charleston, South Carolina. We picked it off a map and moved. And then really, like, COVID happened, and all of that changed the trajectory of everybody's life, really. And then from there, I really wanted to make more of an impact. And so I ended up in leadership in real estate. I've been in real estate for 11 years now, and ended up going into leadership within real estate. And that's how I ended up in Florida. So, that's how that all comes together to put us into Florida.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you in Charleston?
3 years.
Okay,
so
and then
2021.
And then we
moved to Florida. Yep.
So just to set the table a bit, you picked it off a map. What drew you to Charleston?
A lot of it. First of all, it was south. I couldn't do another Minnesota winter. I just couldn't. So it was more south, but also just the beauty and the history and things like that. It wasn't anything real earth shattering. It was more about just being a part of a new area and a new kind of lifestyle.
Okay. And then the jump to Florida in 22, is that correct?
21.
Okay, and yeah. Whereabouts in Florida?
Clearwater, Florida, just right by Tampa.
Yeah. So for those listening, now we're not talking just you and your husband here. Like, these moves entailed your whole family. So I think it's really important for you to describe the size of your family and the fact that, it's not just you and your husband picking up and putting a few boxes in the back of the Subaru. Like, you're moving a family each of these times.
Right. Yes. So my husband and I have 6 kids. 2 of them are older and adult-ish. So they ended up making the move, but not as a part of our household. And then when we moved to Florida, we ended up leaving one in Charleston. He stayed there. And then one also came with us and migrated to the area. So yeah, it was an undertaking for sure to move that many people.
Okay. And then fast forward to this year, it was the move to France. But before we get there, I want you to talk a little bit, just tell me when you say leadership in realty, describe that.
So I do a lot of coaching. The majority of my coaching is within the real estate space. So I coach real estate agents to do better in their business and be more successful, that sort of thing. But I also do coaching outside of that that's based on I call it change implementation coaching, because a lot of people want to make a change in their life and don't know how. So it's a lot of coaching people through big life changes, and then real estate coaching at the same time. But it's been a great combination, and I've been doing it for a few years and really love it.
And so I have to imagine that helps facilitate a move across the Atlantic, right?
I think so. I know a bit about change and how to manage that and not lose your mind. So I think that probably helps. In addition
to the fact that I assume that a lot of your work is remote. If not now, it all might be.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a trigger for this, because I was able to go to a completely remote position with an understanding with my employer that I was going to be relocating out of the country. And we've never had that before. We've never had a completely remote opportunity like that. So that was definitely part of what makes this a little bit easier.
So when you were transitioning to your new employer, this was a conversation that you were having, kind of in the sense of saying this has to be part of the package?
Yes. Yep. It was very much an upfront, this is my plan, and I can't take a role that doesn't allow me to complete that plan.
So that takes a certain amount of bravado going into the negotiation with that caveat, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It was a kind of a combination of things. I had been with an employer that I was completely remote with, which I will warn anybody looking to move out of the country. It doesn't always mean they'll let you move out of the country, even if you never see anyone and you're working in a closet. It still doesn't matter. And so that was an issue for them. And so I knew in my next role, I had to make sure that wasn't an issue for my next role. So.
Okay. So we're going to come back to the leadership stuff in a bit, but now, like, this is the big lead up. So when does the dream, the concept of moving to France, when does that start to enter the picture for you?
I want to say that the pull to a different culture and a different lifestyle has kind of always been there. I've been a real kind of out of the box person for as long as I've known me. And that's always been part of it, is like, I think that there's probably a better way or a better, lifestyle, that kind of thing. But I would say it was last summer, we had started looking at German citizenship and things like that, because my husband has the opportunity to get German citizenship. And I just kind of went down a rabbit hole, as we sometimes do with the internet, where you just start looking at things, and it's been hours and I'm still looking at things, and it sort of snowballed. And I just said to him, what if we just moved there anyway, even if we didn't have the citizenship? There's other paths. Like, what if we just did this? And, he was like, sure, yeah, okay, and then it just sort of turned into a thing where I was like, you shouldn't agree with me in the first place, right? So now it's a thing. And it just took on a life of its own. And I was a really great, part of a really great coaching program. And he was asking what my 12-month goal was. And this was last August. And I said to him, I want to move to Europe. And he said, what? And I said, I don't know. Did I just say that? Like, it was the first time I had ever said it out loud. And I said, yeah, in 12 months, I want to move to Europe. And 12 months later, we did. We lived in Europe. So it's just, sometimes things just happen and you're not entirely sure why. And they take on a life of their own. And that's how it works.
So as you look back, were these this desire to kind of be on the move and see new places and kind of, a lot of people feel this sense that of comfort when they tie themselves down, right? Routine. Okay. I'm in the same house. This is the house that I bought. I'm staying here. These are my roots. Right. What you're living out is pretty antithetical to that. And so, like, do you see, looking back, have you always possessed that desire?
Yes. And I think it's maybe because I didn't have that. I was born and raised in one town and lived there my whole life. And my dad was a teacher at the same place for 40 years, and we lived in the same house my whole life. There was no, and I don't want to say opportunity. They gave me great opportunity, but there was no diversity. There was no cultural diversity. There was no learning about other places or languages or anything like that when you're in a very, very small town in northern Minnesota. And I always just wanted that. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to get out there and learn about new places and new people. Yeah, and I guess that just maybe came from that upbringing of not doing those things.
Yeah. Dreaming of that and making it happen, I think, is the difference for a lot of people, right? I think there are probably a lot of people that are sitting in a cubicle somewhere with that very same thought in the back of their head, but something was a catalyst to make you say, yeah, we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
Do you know what that catalyst is?
Well, I don't think it's one thing for sure. I will say that the political environment in the country sure lent a little bit of power to the decision. But also, there's time frames when you have young kids. I feel like you kind of have that never ending thought of like, if we don't do it now, do we miss out on giving the kids this experience? If they're too old, then they don't get this experience with us. And our kids are, the younger ones are 16, 13, 12, and 5 right now. And we thought, well, if we wait any longer, we can't really go. And sure, a few years ago, it probably would have been better, but now seems like a great time to do it. So if we're going to do the thing, let's do it now. And it was sort of a perfect storm between that and some things going on in the US and just some some things that were happening locally, even in Florida, that were getting to be a little bit too much, where I kept leaning on the fact that I think that there's another way of living. I think that there's another environment we could be in that might improve our way of life and quality of life and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great entree into the move, right? I assume that you don't come up with the idea in March and move in August when you're moving to France. There's a little bit of difference between Fargo-Moorhead to Charleston and Clearwater, Florida to France, right? So what is that ramp up and what does it take to plan for a move like that?
Yeah. Well, so we were really starting from absolute scratch. Like, we didn't even have passports. My husband and I had passports that expired long ago, and the kids had never had them. So we were starting at passport level. And so I would say we started in probably November with that process, at least. We knew we needed to take a scouting mission because we had never actually been to Europe. So we needed to do that as well. So we sort of started with passports. And then by February of this year, we went to France and we looked at some areas. But then once we came back from there, it was really just full throttle into the move. So it was really from February to August is how long it took us to get everything together to go.
Did the kids go on the scouting trip?
One of them. Well, two of them. But our oldest boy that's out of the house, we brought him. And then our oldest daughter went with. But we thought it would be too much. It's not easy to travel with 7 people. So we thought it would be too much to try and do it with everybody. So we just took the oldest. But
okay. So you come back. I'm assuming then that you must have kind of found a destination point and said, this is the destination point where we're going to end up. So you come and,
right.
And so, like, what is that process? What are the scope of the things that you have to start doing to, I mean, you don't pack up a lifetime full of stuff and move it to France with you. So where did that process start? Yeah.
There were so many pieces of this process that you don't understand the depth of, and you don't understand the emotions involved in it, right? Like, it sounds more like a checklist. Like, I'm just going to, get these things done and check them off. But when you're standing there with every, piece of baby clothing your 6 kids have ever worn, you're making decisions that are very emotionally based. And that's where the whole process gets real weird. And you're fighting through a lot of emotions around the past and your history and what your future looks like. And a lot of that was a little bit unexpected. I didn't expect it to be so involved. So that was definitely a process of just going through. And I would say we donated probably 90% of what we own to a hospice organization in Clearwater. And then that last 10% is living in a storage unit in Clearwater right now.
If you haven't already, head to BeLight.org to sign up for the monthly Lead with Light newsletter. While you're there, you can also find past editions on the Lead with Light blog and register for upcoming trainings. Also, be on the lookout for the official Lead with Light book, which will be released later this year. Okay, so you didn't eliminate everything from your life, but
no.
What? So I'm assuming you had what, a suitcase each and maybe a carry-on. Like, is that the totality of what you brought with?
Yes. So we brought 17 suitcases.
Okay. So what is that process like?
When we went.
Is that all checked, or I mean, are you shipping those out beforehand?
That was a whole other thing. So because our son came with us when we came over, there was 7 of us. So then each of us had 2 check bags, and then each of us had a carry-on too. So we were able to get more luggage based on how many people we had. But then we also had a dog in a giant crate, and then 2 cats in the cabin with us. So it wasn't just 7 of us, it was, 10 of us plus 17 bags.
Did you
and then
film?
really the logistics of that.
Did you film like your trip to the airport? Because this sounds like a John Candy movie.
Right. Well, and it's those logistics that you don't necessarily prepare for. And it was like, because we had to take a flight out of Orlando to be able to get the animals onto the flight that was the shortest duration, we needed to take a van from Clearwater to Orlando. So I had to find the biggest van I could find. So we found a 15-passenger van, and we just stacked the suitcases to the ceiling in it, which I have pictures of all of that mess. Because my husband was like, it's never gonna fit, and I'm like, it will fit. Like, where there's a will, there's a way, and I am the way. So we got it all in there. Yeah, right. Check. And so that was half of it. But then on the back end, we had to figure out how to get everybody, from the Paris airport to Strasbourg, which is 6 hours from Paris. So then it was, trying to find a big enough van on this end. That was a whole nother thing. We got a 9-passenger on this end. My husband's like, it's really never going to fit. And I was like, yes, it will. And we got it all in there too. So that was an adventure. And that was one that we had no idea if it was going to work or not. But we just figure we'll figure it out as we go. So
was it a direct flight, Orlando to Paris?
Yeah.
Okay,
it
so
was.
you didn't have a
That's why we went to Orlando. Right.
Okay, so no connecting flights, none of the Kevin moments, right? Turning around and...
No, we didn't even lose a kid.
Well...
We didn't. We got them all, so...
That's amazing. So now, do you have a vehicle in France, or like that was a rental that you were taking from Paris to Strasbourg?
Right. We just rented like a big passenger around. So here, we just rent like a normal SUV kind of thing for day to day now.
So did you have the house? I guess I don't even know if it's a house. It is. You have posted some pictures of it. You arrived. Now, is that something that you had arranged for before you ever moved over, or was this in process when you kind of hit the ground?
So when we came over in February, we met with the owner of the house, and they agreed to let us live in the house that they were building. It wasn't even built yet. So again, one of those things we put a lot of faith into. These were perfect strangers that had a house that wasn't built, and they said, yeah, it'll be there. And we're like, but how do we know? We don't. So there was a lot of just riding on faith in that process, and it all worked out beautifully. They're amazing people, as we have found all of the French to be. They're just all very generous and kind people that we've encountered so far. So, but we did secure that when we were here in February.
I have to imagine for a lot of people, the thought of agreeing to rent a house that's not built yet would be terrifying.
Yes. And there were, I think Americans tend to be a little more cynical than some of the rest of the world. because I'm always running everything through like the scam filter. I'm like, does this
Yeah,
seem like a
right.
scam? I don't know, And there was many nights back in the U.S. after February when we were here that I'm like, is this a scam? Is this real? I'm not sure if this is real, but we'll figure it out. So,
Okay. So, and I think if I remember correctly, when you arrived, the house wasn't completely finished.
Right. It still kind of isn't. There are some things that I don't know how much you know about just general French stereotypes, but one of them is that they don't really do things quickly. And we're finding that to be true. They kind of do it when it gets done. So we've had pallets as our front steps, pallets that are just stacked up for the last 2 months since we've been here. But they've assured us that it's coming. So we wait. But these are not like, huge things. The house is beautiful. Our family is well taken care of. It's just, there's some things that aren't quite finished yet, but.
So one of the other things that I've been fascinated with as you have shared kind of just daily challenges that we just take for granted, right? I mean, watching the process of you getting the kids enrolled in school, finding the market that you're going to shop at. Like I have to assume that a lot of that is all consuming at this point still.
Yes. And another thing I underestimated, that the level of like emotional exhaustion that you get to, because like you just said, nothing is easy. Like it is in doing a process or a routine you've always done. You do it unconsciously even. Like, how many times have you driven home from work and you don't even remember? It was just all unconscious. Yeah. And here everything is conscious, which that's the part about growth that I'm so drawn to, is that everything is new and everything is hard, but not necessarily in a bad way. You're just very present. Because you don't have a choice. You have to be very present or you won't figure it out. So very much, emotionally draining, just doing normal kinds of things.
For a whole family. I mean, so you're not only managing that for yourself and a spouse, but like you're having to constructively help 4 kids to do this.
Right. Yes. Much different.
And what have the kids' responses been?
That's been an emotional journey as well so far. Each of them is approaching things a little differently, as we all do. Everybody's kind of got their own. And the youngest one is a little bit more oblivious because he's 5 and, he's starting kindergarten here. So it's not, he didn't really have a great foundation of what it's like in the U.S. school anyway. So it's a little different. He does have some amazing teachers and they do speak English. We're very grateful for that. So it's a little bit easier for him to understand. The next 2 are not having as much luck because they are in a French school, and our 13-year-old's teacher does speak a bit of English. Our 6th grader has no English. None of her classmates speak English, and her teacher doesn't as well. So that one is probably our most emotional situation because she is struggling the most with the adaptation. And then our oldest, it took her over a month to get into school because of the way the system is much different here. And so that's been really interesting for her to just get integrated the last couple of weeks here. We're watching her and navigate that with speaking none of the language and things like that. So each of us is definitely handling it in our own way. And I'm just trying to mitigate the trauma that, that's incurred by any one of them at any time.
So I think, again, in the column of the things that would terrify people, moving somewhere where you don't know the language, like you seem very whimsical about embracing this, whereas I think it would be terrifying for a lot of people.
Yes. And I understand that. And most people, when we have said we're moving to France, that is the first thing they ask. Oh, you speak French? No, I know literally 4 words in France, maybe. And we purposely chose the area that we're in because the headquarters of the EU is here. So there's a huge influx of international people. And so the likelihood that you're finding somebody that speaks English is really very good. And so that was part of my rationale for picking this area. If we would have been out in a little French village in the middle of nowhere, I don't know how we would survive with the level of French that we have. But because we're in a metropolitan area that has a lot of English speakers, it's not quite as brutal. Mostly everybody speaks some kind of level of English, which is very helpful. But it's still, in a school setting, it's a little different for the kids, for sure. So they're probably getting like the worst of that piece of it.
Yeah. So your 2 oldest are still in the U.S.
Yes.
What is that like for a mom?
That is probably one of the hardest things about the move is that we have 2 kids and my mom that are still over there. And I desperately just want to pick up everybody and bring them with me wherever I go, right? But they have their own the thoughts about the way they live their lives. And one of our sons, I am fairly certain will end up joining us over here. The other one has a life that's pretty rooted in South Carolina, so I see him staying there. But yeah, that is definitely hard. But I had, we traveled back to Minnesota this summer before we left. And it was probably a 9-hour trip by plane, not the flight, but, between layovers and getting to the airport and things like that. So I sort of take comfort in the fact that I know that I can get to Florida in 10 hours. And it just about took me that long to get across, North America too. So, I can get there if I need to. And that's the only thing that helps me sleep at night, really. But
so how about the work factor? I have to imagine your work hours. We talked about this earlier. You're 7 hours ahead in time. That's got to impact how you schedule your day.
Yes, that has been a shift. So my team is on the East Coast, so we're 6 hours difference. So instead of working, 9 to 5, I basically work noon to 9. That's really been my cadence since I've been here, which works well. It kind of gives me some time before the rest of the world has woken up on the East Coast that I'm able to get a bunch of stuff done. And then I have calls and things past 3 because that's 9 in Eastern time. So it actually works out pretty well. It takes some getting used to, a little bit of shift, I have to have all of my clocks set to 2 different times because otherwise I can't figure it out real quick. But other than that, it's been working well.
A portion of that, then, I mean, the kids are coming home from school and kind of normal family life is taking place during that period too. That's got to be something that you at least have to juggle.
Yes, and that's where my husband has just really been amazing. He jokes about how I need to get him an apron because he makes so many meals now, and he's the cook and he's absolutely the chauffeur. Like, he spends most of the day in the car, driving around in circles. And so he's been a big piece of that. Like, he's doing a lot of that. But also the school schedules here are so different than the US. So they have Wednesdays mostly off. They only go for a few hours on Wednesdays. And then they only go for 6 weeks at a time. And then they have 2 weeks off. So, whatever I lose at night while I'm working is kind of made up for on Wednesdays and their time off. And we're just kind of piecing it together. But I worked in mental health for a lot of years, and I worked the swing shift till midnight every night. So it's not foreign to me to be gone at night. And sure. It's just how it works sometimes. But
so, before I still want to dive back to the leadership stuff, but more specifically, you have been there full on the ground since August, right? Ish.
Right. Yep. End August.
So, yeah. So, almost 2 months.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What is the family missing the most?
Outside of people, I would say probably peanut butter. It's a big deal because we can't get real peanut butter here. So that's become an issue. I think it's just familiarity. I think that's what everybody is missing, is just the knowing of your daily life. You know what to expect, you know what's coming, you know where to go, and we don't have that. So while we have a little bit of normalcy in what we've created in the last 2 months, it's still very unfamiliar. So I would say that's probably what we're all sort of missing the most.
And for kids, that probably dominates even more of their conscience because familiarity is comforting.
Right. Yeah. I do think that's hard. Our typical comforts aren't there, so we relied heavily on each other. It definitely helps strengthen the family unit when you are taken out of your comfort zone, because you just kind of close in on each other then, and so we have all gotten very, very close, because we are each other's comfort, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Biggest challenge you didn't anticipate?
Gosh, biggest challenge, I would say, and I kind of did anticipate it, but it's really like they live in a culture of planning ahead, or at least maybe slowing down, and so they don't have to plan ahead. I'm not sure, but things close. Like things are closed on Sundays, just across the board. You can't get milk. You can't buy an egg to save your life on Sunday. So if you don't have it done on Saturday, it's not happening, and that's very different for me. Well, for most of us, I suppose. And then Amazon, there is Amazon here, but in Clearwater, it was like if I needed something at 10 a.m., it would be at my house by 2. Same day is a miracle. And they don't have that here. You order on Amazon, you get it the next week. So there's just this, it's not an instant gratification kind of culture. It's very much a plan ahead and have the things and don't worry about it, and they just live very differently. And so that's been an adjustment for sure.
And that's intentional, right? I mean, we should state that this isn't because of
right.
This isn't because they're lazy. It's this intentional, like it's intentionally they're closed on Sundays, right? To give people rest.
Right. 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have heard that once you get used to it, you love it, but I'm just not there yet. So.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you live your entire life. Well, we guide everything by watches and by calendars here, right?
Right. It's not the same.
So you are in leadership. You're in the business of coaching leadership. You mentioned you're in the business of coaching people through big changes. How does that change when you essentially have to become your own coach?
Well, I think I try to use the same things I would tell other people, on myself, because it's easy to fall into some, anxieties here. I mean, the emotional roller coaster we've been on for the last 2 months is not for the faint of heart, for real. And so bracing myself with my own advice is probably the best way I can put it. It's understanding that these things take time, and it's understanding that things aren't going to be the same. And we didn't move here for things to be the same, but that doesn't make it any easier getting through the transition. So it's giving grace, it's giving rest. It's things like that I would coach anybody doing a similar change to do.
I assume that as mom, part of your role right now is helping your family with those things.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you... I ask this because my own family at times will look at me and say, "Stop being my pastor." Does your family look at you and say, "Stop being my change coach right now. I want you to be mom"?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've just gotten so used to it, flowing from one to the other. And really, there's no difference between, coaching and mom advice anyway. It's kind of all the same. Moms are typically really great coaches and can get you through the hardest situations anyway. So I'm just kind of a mom coach, but it is a unique issue to coach other people on something that you're also going through. It's not very often that you're going through the exact change that somebody else is. So it's keeping in mind, the veil of issues I'm having myself, and not, letting that go through in my coaching for the kids, because their situation is unique to them as well.
Yeah. But this is fascinating to me, and just the whole concept of leadership. I think there would be a lot of... I think for people who don't think about it, there might be many that would be surprised that, like, you literally make a living out of helping people become better leaders. Correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that's what leadership is. It's helping everyone become a leader.
Yeah. You and I talked about kind of up to the lead up of this conversation that one of the goals of this podcast is to kind of put a fresh look on what leadership is, and so I shared with you that just your family journey and what goes into that and the emotional toll that it takes. I think a lot of those emotions that you've shared, the unknowns that you have to manage, are applicable in a lot of things that happen in daily life and our work life. Do you find that to be the case as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, when you're looking at change as a whole, there's not really a difference in change. Whether it's you're switching careers, or you're moving across the world, or you're getting a divorce, or whatever, it's the same process internally. Like, you're doing the same emotions and you're going through kind of the same things as you're acclimating to a change or a new life or whatever. And so coaching one is not necessarily different from coaching a different kind of change. And anybody who is a leader is going through change. Typically you don't meet leaders that are just stagnant and not doing anything, because that's not really leadership. So you look to leaders as people who are making changes, or growing in personal or professional ways, and change is involved in all of that. So it's applicable to all of us.
You have given me an epiphany. As we talk about as we talk about leadership, and in all of the months that I've been doing this podcast, probably the substantial challenge as leaders that we face is change, and helping others embrace the change. Right?
Right. That's it.
Is that what drives most people who are seeking out your services to you? They've realized that they're encountering a change?
Either it's been put on them and they don't necessarily want that change, or it's a change that they want to make. Either way, there's change involved, whether external or internal, and they're looking to navigate that, and how to navigate that, and how to be successful in navigating it. Because I think we've all had a change in our life that we weren't successful in navigating it. Or we shut down, or, we do things that we wouldn't normally do because we don't know how to get through that. Because it's not easy. Change it's never easy. It's not supposed to be. You wouldn't grow if change were easy. So that's how I look at it. But
I have an even greater appreciation for what it is that you do now.
Good. That's great.
Yeah. I don't think
it's important.
All that many of us professionals go to the length of proving ourselves, like by picking our family up and moving them to France. Like,
yes,
that's quite the bona fide.
Yeah. I also think it's important to set an example, because I have a lot of people say, "Oh, I would love to do what you've done, but I could never do that." And, that frustrates me, because anybody can do anything, really. You just have to decide and and make a plan, but it's not reserved for certain people, for sure.
So, as you say that, one of the that's got to be a constantly irritating. Maybe irritating is too strong a word, but like a annoying concept that so many of the people that you talk to are like, "Nah, I could never do that," or I couldn't get over. And like, you have this coach in the back of your head saying, "Oh yeah, you could."
Yep. And depending on the person, I will say that to them, and then other times I won't. But it's, it's possible for everyone to make big changes if they want to. So I just don't love hearing limiting beliefs from people. I like to challenge them.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, tell people how they can reach out to you.
So we have a website for our move. So it's our expatlife6.com. So that journals our move and kind of shows everybody what we're doing. But you can also find us on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or wherever on our Expat Life 6. So follow along and maybe get some inspiration from it. And if you want to make a move, let me know.
So when I was selling this episode to our production folks here at DMF, everybody's question was like, are we going to see you on TLC? Like, is this working itself into, a documentary style, real life story TV?
I like that. I don't know. I don't know who I have to talk to about that. But for now, we're just having a lot of fun doing it.
I'm telling you, everybody, we were in the pitch session, they're like, this is a TV show. So there you go. I don't know who you got to find.
There we go. I don't know. I'll call around.
I think you're going to have to reenact the trip from Clearwater to Orlando, though. Like, I don't know how you start the TV series without that shot.
Yeah, we could definitely do that because that was interesting. But it all worked out. It just works out. So
yeah. One last piece of advice from you, from a standpoint. Now, I mean, I don't want to give away your business, but for those that are listening and they're struggling with being in that place where they know they need to change, like, how do you get there?
For me, in all the changes that we've made, it's really find where you want to be. So decide what you want your life to look like. We only get the one shot at this, as far as we know. So if you are unhappy or if you don't love what you're doing or what your life looks like, then change it. But decide what you want that to look like, and then break it down into very small steps. Because if you're only going at the very large goal, you're not going to get there because it's just too overwhelming. It's too scary. So break it down. And if you need somebody to help you, there are people that can help you do that. But break it down to very small steps and then just keep moving forward. One step at a time will move you forward. It's the only way to move forward. So just keep going.
And I'm sorry, I know the questions keep coming up, but this is so fascinating. Do you think part of the struggle is that so many people don't do that first step of actually taking the time to stop and say, What is the destination point?
Yes, but even a step prior to that is I don't think enough people examine where they're currently at. I don't know if enough people say, do I like where I am? Or am I just here? Am I just going to work and going home and, drinking a beer on the couch and watching TV? Is that just your pattern, or is that what you really want to do? And I'm betting most of the world, if you ask them, they would say, no, I'm not really doing what I want to do. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And so I think, first of all, it's challenging yourself in figuring out if what you're doing is what you're really passionate about and what you really want for your life. And then from there, deciding what you really want that to look like. And then going down that path. But you have to do that first part first.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you so much for appearing on the Lead with Light podcast. I'm so grateful. You have my imagination captured. This is fascinating, and watching every part of the daily, this daily story unfolding is amazing. And you and your family are inspiring.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is important work, for people to be able to hear these kinds of stories and things. So I love that you're doing this. So thank you for that.
Imagine being on a beach in Hawaii. It's your last day there, and the thought of returning to another Minnesota winter is paralyzing. You realize then that you have to move. No, you need to move. Move you and your husband and your entire family to a city you've never visited before, to an area of the country that is entirely new. That may be terrifying to you, but for Marcia Werner, a professional real estate agent and change implementation coach, well, it's just part of her DNA. And this adventurous streak she possesses recently landed her and her family in a foreign country, in a house they rented sight unseen, with all the people they've ever known and loved back across the Atlantic, some 10 hours away. You may think this is impossible for you. You're way too accustomed to your life and the idea of the challenges of living in a country where you don't speak the language doesn't seem exhilarating, but rather it sounds frightening. But Marcia, whose professional life focuses on helping other people make changes just like this, says this kind of wholesale change is possible for anyone who's willing to embrace the necessary work to make the transition. And even if in the near future you aren't planning to relocate your entire family, including the dog and cats, to another continent, Marcia shares that you can learn to make the journeys through big, life-altering changes easier. For instance, on a smaller scale, maybe these practices can help one through a new career change, the transition to being an empty nest parent, or even to a large loss in one's life. Change doesn't have to be paralyzing, Marcia insists, but all of us certainly can improve our ability to embrace change with a little work. So how about it, listeners? What country will you be moving to? This is Pastor Devlin Brooks of Churches United on the DMF podcast series, Lead with Light. Remember, we are all called to serve by seeing light, being light, and spreading light. Amen.